Right now, at this exact moment, the price of food is being decided not at your grocery store, not at your kitchen table, but in fertilizer plants, shipping ports, and fuel markets most people never think about. And by the time those decisions show up on the shelf in front of you, it's already too late to get ahead of them. There's a group of people who understand this. They're not doomsday preppers. They're not conspiracy theorists. They're just informed. And quietly, without making a big deal about it, they're filling their pantries with a very specific list of groceries that most other shoppers walk right past every single week. In this video, you're going to learn exactly what those items are, why they matter, and why the window to act at today's prices is getting smaller. Every single item on this list has a reason, rooted in history, supply chain reality, and basic human nutrition, and by the end, you're going to see your grocery store completely differently. Welcome to Food Decider. If you're new here, subscribe right now and hit the like button. It helps more people get access to information like this, and trust me, they need it. Let's get into it. The first item on this list is one that almost nobody takes seriously until they really think about it: salt. Yes, plain, ordinary table salt. Before you skip ahead, hear this out, because salt is quietly becoming one of the most important items you can stock up on, and the reason goes much deeper than seasoning your food. Salt has been a form of currency. It has started wars. The word salary literally comes from the Latin word for salt. That's how valuable it was considered throughout human history. And the reason is simple. Before refrigeration existed, salt was the only reliable way to preserve food. Meat, fish, vegetables, none of it lasted without salt. And that reality hasn't disappeared. It's just been temporarily masked by the modern cold chain we all depend on. Now here's what's happening today. Supply chain disruptions have been quietly pushing salt prices upward. The mining, processing, and transportation of industrial salt, including food-grade varieties, is tied to the same energy costs that are driving prices up across the board. What costs $1 today may not cost $1 6 months from now. But the deeper reason to stock salt is this: it has zero expiration date. Properly stored salt lasts indefinitely. It takes up almost no space. It costs almost nothing. And if the fresh food supply is ever disrupted, whether for a week or a month, salt becomes the tool that lets you safely preserve and extend the food you do have. Most people walk past it every week and never give it a second thought. Smart people are buying extra bags right now. The second item on this list is one that has survived the rise and fall of entire civilizations, and it's doing it from a shelf in your local grocery store: honey. Real, pure honey is the only food in human history that has been found in ancient Egyptian tombs, thousands of years old, and still perfectly edible. That is not an exaggeration. Archaeologists have eaten it. Honey does not spoil. Ever. As long as it's stored in a sealed container and kept away from moisture, it will last indefinitely. The reason comes down to chemistry. Honey is extremely low in moisture, highly acidic, and contains hydrogen peroxide as a natural byproduct of its production. Bacteria cannot survive in it. Mold cannot grow in it. It is, by nature, antimicrobial. Now here's where things get interesting. The global honey supply is under real pressure. Bee colony collapse is a genuine, ongoing crisis affecting honey production worldwide. Import disruptions and tariff pressures are pushing prices at the consumer level steadily upward. The jar of honey sitting on the shelf today is priced lower than it likely will be in the near future. And beyond pure survival value, honey matters for something that doesn't get talked about enough in preparedness discussions: morale. When everything tastes the same, when meals become repetitive and joyless, a little sweetness is not a luxury, it's a psychological necessity. It's the difference between feeling like you're surviving and feeling like you're living. Stock honey now, a few extra jars. It will never go bad, it will only get more expensive, and on a hard day, it will matter more than you expect. The third item connects to something that most people would never associate with their cooking oil, and that connection is the reason prices are about to become unpredictable: cooking oil. Soybean oil, palm oil, canola oil, vegetable oil. These are staples so common that they barely register when you grab a bottle off the shelf. But here is something that changes how you see them entirely. Cooking oils, particularly soybean oil and palm oil, are directly tied to the biodiesel fuel industry. The same crops that produce these oils are used to manufacture biodiesel as an alternative to petroleum. That means when fuel prices rise, demand for oil crops rises. When demand for oil crops rises, the supply of food-grade cooking oil tightens. When supply tightens, prices go up. This is not a theory. This is a documented, repeating pattern that has happened multiple times in the past decade, and the conditions that drive it are very much in play right now. Beyond the economics, think about what cooking oil actually does in your kitchen. It is not just an ingredient, it is a transformation tool. Dried rice, dried beans, oats, canned vegetables. Eaten plain, they are edible but deeply uninspiring. With cooking oil, they become something different. Texture changes, flavor develops. A meal becomes a meal, not just fuel. In a situation where you are relying on shelf-stable basics, cooking oil is the item that makes everything else.
And its shelf life, stored in a cool, dark place, is typically 1 to 2 years, long enough to make stocking it a genuinely smart decision. Grab an extra bottle or two every time you shop. This is one of those items where future you will be very glad past you paid attention. The next item on this list is small, inexpensive, and quietly one of the most powerful things you can have in a disrupted food situation, and most people have never thought about it this way. Bouillon cubes, or bouillon stock powder. These small, dense cubes, typically made from dehydrated meat stock, salt, and seasoning, last for 2 to 3 years on the shelf, cost almost nothing, and take up virtually no space. A single box fits in the palm of your hand and contains enough flavor base for dozens of meals. But here's what makes bouillon genuinely important, and it's a point that goes beyond nutrition labels. Humans have a deep psychological relationship with warm, savory, flavorful broth. Across almost every culture on Earth, broth is comfort. It is what people make when someone is sick, when the weather is cold, when things feel uncertain. The smell of it, the warmth of it, these things trigger something deep in our sense of safety and normalcy. In a situation where meals become repetitive and morale drops, bouillon is the item that lets you turn a pot of plain water and dried ingredients into something that smells like home. That matters enormously. Emergency response workers and aid organizations have known this for decades. Flavor is not frivolous, it is part of what keeps people functional under stress. From a nutrition standpoint, bouillon also adds sodium, which the body needs, as well as trace minerals and some B vitamins depending on the formula. It stretches meals further and makes less palatable ingredients far easier to eat. At the price point these sell for, there is almost no reason not to have a significant stock of them. Pick up a few boxes on your next grocery run. They take up no room and they deliver results completely out of proportion to their cost. The fifth item is something you probably already have in your cabinet, but likely not enough of, and for reasons that go beyond the obvious. Peanut butter. Let's start with the numbers, because they make the case instantly. A standard jar of peanut butter contains roughly 2,500 calories. It provides protein, healthy fats, and is shelf-stable for up to 2 years. Per calorie and per dollar, it is one of the most efficient foods available to the average consumer. In a disruption scenario, whether a major storm, a supply chain shock, or an extended period of food price inflation, peanut butter is exactly what you want on your shelf. It requires no cooking, it requires no refrigeration, it can be eaten straight from the jar, and it provides enough caloric density that a small amount goes a surprisingly long way. Now, here's what most shoppers don't know. The cost of producing peanut butter is rising, and it's rising for a reason that affects many foods on this list: fertilizer prices. Peanuts, like most crops, are heavily dependent on nitrogen-based fertilizers. When fertilizer prices spike, as they have done dramatically in recent years due to energy costs and supply disruptions, farming input costs go up. Those costs move through the supply chain and eventually show up on the shelf. The prices you see right now on peanut butter may not reflect what's coming. The upstream costs have already moved. The retail price often lags behind by months. This is a known pattern in agricultural commodity pricing. Buying peanut butter today at current prices is genuinely one of the smarter purchases you can make for your household's preparedness. A few extra jars, rotated regularly, cost almost nothing and provide significant peace of mind. The sixth item is one where the logic becomes very clear once you think about where your fresh meat actually comes from and how many things have to go right for it to reach you. Canned protein, specifically canned chicken and canned tuna. Fresh chicken and fresh fish are among the most logistically complex foods in the modern supply chain. They require consistent refrigeration from the moment they're processed to the moment you put them in your cart. That cold chain depends on fuel, transportation infrastructure, functional refrigeration systems at every step, and reliable delivery schedules. Any single point of failure ripples outward. Transportation costs for fresh meat have risen significantly alongside fuel prices. Those costs are passed along at every step, and when disruptions occur, whether weather events, port delays, or distribution breakdowns, fresh protein is among the first things to disappear from shelves and among the slowest to return. Canned chicken and canned tuna solve this entirely. They require no refrigeration, they need no cooking, they're fully cooked in the can, they're ready to eat with nothing more than a can opener. And they provide complete protein, essential for maintaining muscle, immune function, and basic physical performance. Their shelf life typically runs 3 to 5 years, sometimes longer. They are genuinely portable, and in terms of protein per dollar, particularly for canned tuna, the value is exceptional. Stock a meaningful quantity of both. Rotate your stock. Eat from it, replace what you use. This is a simple habit that ensures you always have high-quality protein available, regardless of what's happening in the fresh meat supply chain. The seventh item is the one where nutritionists, emergency preparedness specialists, and humanitarian food aid organizations consistently rank as the single most important shelf-stable food group: dried lentils and dried beans.
Nothing on this list, or arguably in any grocery store, delivers the combination of protein, fiber, complex carbohydrates, iron, and other micronutrients at the price point that dried lentils and beans do. A 1-pound bag of dried lentils costs less than $2 in most stores and provides roughly 10 servings of nutritionally dense food. There is no comparable value anywhere in the grocery store. And there is a specific practical advantage to lentils in particular that makes them stand apart even from other dried legumes. They do not require soaking. Most dried beans need to soak overnight before cooking. Lentils can go straight into a pot of water and be fully cooked in 20 to 30 minutes. In a situation where fuel, water, or time is limited, that difference is significant. Dried beans, black beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, white beans are only slightly behind. Soaking them overnight dramatically reduces their cooking time, and they provide a similar nutritional profile with excellent long-term storage characteristics. Both lentils and beans store well for 5 or more years in a cool, dry environment. They take up minimal space. They adapt to almost any flavor profile. Whatever spices, bouillon, or oil you have available, they absorb and work with. When food prices rise across the board, people who understand dried legumes have a cushion. They can eat well, eat nutritiously, and spend very little. For anyone building a smart pantry, this category is not optional. It is the foundation. The eighth item on this list is something most people think of exclusively as a breakfast food. That's a mistake, and in a shortage situation, it's a costly one. Rolled oats. Oats are one of the most versatile staple grains available. Yes, they make oatmeal, but they also thicken soups and stews. They can be used to extend ground meat. They form the base of energy bars and dense baked goods. They can be eaten cold, soaked overnight with whatever liquid or sweetener is available. The cooking possibilities are far broader than the cereal aisle suggests. Now, here's something important about oats from a supply and pricing standpoint. Oats are a major agricultural crop with a significant dependency on nitrogen fertilizers. When nitrogen input costs rise, and they have risen sharply, oat farming becomes more expensive. That cost moves through the supply chain and over time lands at retail. But beyond price, there is a historical pattern with oats that is worth knowing.
When food shortages or disruptions occur, whether from weather, supply chain failure, or sudden demand spikes, rolled oats are consistently among the first items to clear from grocery store shelves. This has happened repeatedly and predictably. It happened during the early weeks of the COVID-19 pandemic. It happened during severe weather events. Oats are shelf-stable, affordable, filling, and familiar, which means they get bought immediately when people start to feel uncertain. By the time that clearing happens, it's too late to stock up at a good price. The time to have a meaningful supply of rolled oats is before any of that pressure hits. A large canister or several bags stored in a cool, dry place lasts well over a year. The cost is minimal, the versatility is real, and the peace of mind of having a reliable filling grain on hand is worth every cent. The eighth item on this list has been feeding human civilization for thousands of years, is a dietary staple for more than half the world's population, and has a storage capability that most people find genuinely difficult to believe until they look into it: white rice. When stored properly, in airtight containers kept cool and dry, protected from light and moisture, white rice has a confirmed shelf life of up to 30 years. 30. This is not marketing language, this is established food science. The low moisture content and lack of oils in the grain means it simply does not degrade the way other foods do. It is one of the most stable long-term food stores that exists. At everyday household scale, even without specialized storage containers, white rice stored in a sealed container in a cool pantry will easily last 5 to 10 years in good condition. For anyone building a long-term pantry, it is the bedrock starch. From a nutrition standpoint, white rice is calorie-dense, easy to digest, and pairs with virtually every other food on this list. Lentils and rice is a complete protein combination that has fed billions of people across centuries. Rice and canned chicken, rice with bouillon broth, rice cooked in a little oil with salt and spices. These are simple, satisfying, sustaining meals built almost entirely from shelf-stable ingredients. Now, the important part, rice production is heavily dependent on nitrogen fertilizers. Globally, rice farming consumes enormous quantities of nitrogen and phosphorus-based agricultural inputs. Those input costs have been rising sharply. Supply pressure from production cost increases typically takes time to reach consumer prices, but it does reach them. The rice on shelves today is priced before the full weight of current input costs has been passed through. Buying rice now in larger quantities than you currently use is a straightforward and evidence-based decision. Store it well, rotate it regularly, and it will serve you for years. The 10th item is different from everything else on this list. It isn't a food. You can't cook with it directly. You can't eat it. But without it, every single other item on this list is completely useless. Water. Specifically, water storage and water purification. This needs to be said plainly. The human body begins to decline within 3 days without water. Cognitive function, physical capability, immune response, all of it.
No amount of rice, lentils, peanut butter, or canned protein matters if you don't have safe water to prepare it with, to drink, and to maintain basic sanitation. In almost every real-world disruption scenario, storms, infrastructure failures, contamination events, extended power outages, water access is the first thing to become uncertain. Municipal water systems depend on electrical pumps, treatment facilities, and maintained infrastructure. All of that is more fragile than most people assume. Water storage and water purification are two separate and both necessary considerations. Storage means having physical reserves, whether commercial water jugs, food-grade barrels, or properly sealed containers that give you a buffer of days to weeks. The general guidance from emergency preparedness organizations is 1 gallon per person per day as a minimum starting point. Purification means having the tools to make uncertain water safe, whether through filtration systems, purification tablets, or the ability to boil water effectively. This gives you flexibility when stored supplies run low and alternative sources need to be used. This is not alarmist thinking. It is the same logic that every hospital, every military operation, and every serious emergency management system in the world operates on. Water security is the precondition for everything else. Start here if you haven't already. A few large water containers and a basic filtration system are not expensive. They are, however, foundational. Nothing else works without them. Here's what this entire list comes down to. The food system is not broken, But it is fragile. It depends on fuel prices, fertilizer production, transportation networks, and global trade relationships that are all under more pressure than they have been in decades. Most of that pressure is invisible at the grocery store today. It shows up in the numbers before it shows up on the shelf. The people who act before the shelf catches up are the ones who come out ahead, not because they are pessimistic, but because they are paying attention. Start with what you can. Add a few items to your cart each week. Build the habit gradually. Your pantry doesn't need to transform overnight. It just needs to start moving in the right direction. Which item on this list surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments. The answer is different for almost everyone who watches this video, and that conversation matters. If this was useful to you, like this video. It genuinely helps other people find this content. And if you haven't subscribed to Food Decider yet, do it now. This is exactly the kind of information we bring you regularly. Practical, grounded, and genuinely worth knowing. We'll see you in